Hey, everybody, and welcome to our very first episode of the Superman Longbox. My name is Andrew Pinkham. So glad to be along with you today as we start this brand new endeavor together. Um, First and foremost, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, what this show is going to be about, and yeah, just kind of the basically the outline of what this show is going to be. Basically, if you have ever heard one of my shows, I have done quite a few different podcasts over the years. I used to co-host the Carazarel podcast with my good friend Danny Saab, and we covered the new 52 Adventures of Supergirl, and that was a blast. And I very much miss podcasting with him, and maybe he'll come up on this show every once in a while, talk about Supergirl or whatever. But I've also done a few other podcasts. I still currently, or not currently, but I used to podcast about Supergirl on my own on a show called Krypton's Last Daughter, a Supergirl podcast, covering her Silver Age adventures, which is always interesting time, to say the least. The Silver Age is very campy and fun, and just I had a blast doing that show while I was doing it, and I just, unfortunately, real life got in the way of a lot of my podcasting endeavors. Same thing happened when I decided to do a Wonder Woman podcast. And even with my old Superman family podcast, it just, I didn't seem to find the time for it. A lot has gone on in my life in the past several years, and podcasting kind of took a back seat. But we're going to give this a sincere effort, and we've got a great premise with this show. So I'm really excited to get this show off the ground and kind of start recording again, which is always a good time. So yeah, that's a little about me and my podcast history. I've been podcasting probably on and off for the last 10, actually more than 10 years, about 12 years that I've been podcasting on and off. So, and it's always, it's a fun hobby to get into, and I love talking about comics and superheroes. So, speaking of which, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my history with the character of Superman. I was introduced to Superman when I was just a young boy. My very first introduction was the Fleischer cartoons, believe it or not. And I watched those on repeat, until 1992, when Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman came on TV, and we watched a lot of that until it got a little bit more adult, and my parents wouldn't really let me watch it anymore. So I did eventually finish that show, and there was a good portion of my childhood that I grew up being a Spider-Man fan. The Spider-Man cartoons were on TV at that time, and I didn't really get into the Superman the animated series until much later on in my life. I think I was a teenager when I saw this Superman the animated series. My Superman fandom really revolves around Smallville. Back in high school, I started watching it. Probably around when I was a senior in high school, I discovered Smallville in season 4, and Clark was graduating around the same time I was. So I just kind of latched on the character of Superman. Although my freshman high school girlfriend introduced me to Superman the movie with Chris Reeves, and I always argued with her who the better superhero was because I was a Spider-Man kid. I always argued with her whether or not Superman was better than Spider-Man or vice versa. And that was I was grossly mistaken believing that Spider-Man was better than Superman because powers-wise there is no comparison. So, but actually I may cover, there's a Masterworks version of Spider-Man versus Superman, and I might cover on this show. So, but yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of Superman since since I was a kid, and that hasn't changed even to the point where I'm podcasting about him. So, I'm just really glad to be doing this show, and glad to have you guys along on the ride with me, and as I dive into my long box. And that's kind of what I want to transition into next, is what we're going to be talking about and what this show is going to be covering. Basically, this show has a simple premise. We're going to dig a Superman comic out of my long box, whether it doesn't necessarily need to be a comic. It could be a TV show, a movie, series of movies, or we may cover a series of comic books, like we're going to be doing over the next 6 episodes, once we get into what I'm going to be talking about next in the show proper, after we record a very special episode, either next time or in episode 3. My good friend, and you may know him from my other Superman show, Stephen Vaughn. He and I have been podcasting together for a couple of years now. Several years. We became friends through podcasting, believe it or not, and we just maintained a friendship. And he's a fellow Superman geek just like I am, and we both saw the new Superman movie. We both saw it last week when it came out in theaters, and we thought we would cover it on this show. So be on the lookout for that. It's very, very exciting. I'm looking forward to sitting down with Steven and talking about that movie. But yeah, basically, this show is, we're going to be breaking down, reviewing, whether it be a comic, movie, TV series of comics. It just depends on what I feel like talking about. So nothing Superman related is off topic. So I'm looking forward to doing that and getting this off the ground. So, as well as episodes of the old time radio program I am going to launch on this podcast feed. So, and that may happen a couple times a week, as many as 3 times a week. You might get it maybe Monday, Friday. You might get it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It just feels like, depends on how many episodes I feel like putting out in that week. So yeah, it'll be at least 2 times a week. You'll see the Adventures of Superman old time radio program on this podcast feed. So, and it will be under the name called the Superman Longbox Presents. And so yeah, that's pretty much what this show is going to be about. And you're probably asking, well, where can I find where you're releasing these episodes? Well, we are in several different places. This show is first and foremost available on Spotify. This is where, it's funny because I never knew that Spotify had a podcast like hosting platform or anything like that. It's still fairly new from what I understand. So that's where we're going to be hosting a majority of our episodes. We're also on Apple Podcast. We're on YouTube. And I'm going to be releasing episodes onto the website, which is supermanlongbox.wordpress.com. So there's a bunch of different ways you can listen to the show. You can also interact with me directly. You can email, first and foremost. And my email is supermanlongbox@gmail.com. We are on the X platform, which used to be Twitter. We're at Superman Longbox, and you can also find us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/at Superman Longbox. So, or you can just go into Facebook and type in Superman Longbox, and our logo and show will pop right up, and you'll be able to follow along with us right on social media. So, yeah. Next time, I'm not. This is episode. We're looking at close to 10 minutes now. So, this episode is going to be very, very short, because I'm not actually covering anything this time around. But what I will promise you is that I will be covering whether it's next episode or episode 3. I'm not sure which, because I'm not sure when I will be able to sit down and record my coverage of what we're going to be talking about next time, either next time or episode 3, like I said. We're going to be talking about the Man of Steel mini from 1986. And we're going to start with that and just going to go issue by issue and review it and talk about it. And there's a lot of Superman goodness in there. So that's going to happen. The next episode proper of the show, that's probably going to be in episode 3. I think episode 2 will be my conversation with Steven about the new Superman movie. But who knows? Maybe I'll get to recording and release that Man of Steel #1 episode sooner rather than later. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But so yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this very short introductory episode. And until next time, I am Andrew Pinkham. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the opening and closing themes, and we'll be talking about that more next time. So take care, everybody. Have a good one. See ya.